Hi and welcome or welcome back. In this video series, I'm talking about my favorite fairy tales that don't have Disney movies, or specifically don't have like full feature-length Disney princess type movies. In previous videos, I've talked about a variety of fairy tales, ranging from ones that I find pretty romantic, like The Singing Springing Lark and East of the Sun and West of the Moon, to ones that I find incredibly creepy, like Bluebeard. This video tends towards the more likable and optimistic side of it, but there is one exception to that, and we'll get to that. The first fairy tale I want to talk about today is The Nix of the Mill Pond, or The Nixie of the Mill Pond, by the Grimm brothers. In this one, the guy is down at the mill pond, and he is poor, and so he is not happy about being poor. And this beautiful woman rises up from the mill pond and tells him that she can make him rich, but in exchange for the thing that was just born in his house. Well, he forgets that his wife is pregnant and assumes it must be some animal. And he gets back home and finds out that his wife has given birth to a son. So this child's whole life they're keeping him away from the mill pond because they don't want to give him over to this creature that lives in it. But eventually he grows up and he goes too close to it and she drags him under. Now, by this point, he is engaged to be married, and his fiancée is not happy about this. So the next section of the story follows her attempts to save him, which involve combing her hair with a golden brush and spinning on a golden spinning wheel and playing music on a golden flute. And those things, while they may seem like very, hang on, what? Apparently they have some kind of an effect over the mill pond because he emerges partially and then a little bit more and then fully as she does them. But the Nix is not happy and so sends a flood that separates them, and they end up alone, and they both become a shepherd and a shepherdess. When they finally meet again, they don't recognize each other, but they do become friends and spend time together while they're herding their flocks. And eventually he pulls out a flute and starts playing, and it's the same tune that she played when she was trying to free him from the pond, and that is how they recognize each other. I love this story. I find it so romantic. Like, a lot of fairy tales, we think of them as love stories, but they're not really that romantic. It's like, you kissed a sleeping princess or something. This one, they actually know each other. They knew each other before all the magic stuff started happening, unless you count what happened when he was being born. And the level of, like, to still be in love with someone after that long apart, to overcome that many obstacles to get back together, and then to be reunited and not know each other. That's just like, I find that heartbreaking. And then to finally recognize each other because of not even the way that you look or something that someone said, but because of a shared memory. Oh my gosh, I love this story. Moving on, let's talk about The Ugly Duckling. This is another one that I think is just really sweet and heartwarming. It's about this cygnet, this baby swan, whose egg is left in a duck's nest, and so for all of its childhood it thinks that it's a duckling. It's big and gray and it doesn't fit in, and it doesn't, it's not as good at other things as the ducklings are because it's not a duckling. But then when it grows up, it actually finds out that it was never a duckling at all. It was a swan, and it's grown up into a beautiful, graceful swan. I think it speaks to a certain truth, which is that each person is different and has their own gifts and will be better off trying to reach their own potential rather than be just like the people around them. A lot of fairy tales, even though we think of them as kids' stories that often have a moral, a lot of the time they don't, or if they do, it's not such a still relevant and kind of inspiring one. They tend to be more along the lines of like Cinderella, be kind and patient and hardworking and your dreams will come true. Like, I prefer the ugly duckling thing. Find who you are and reach your own potential rather than trying to be someone else. The next story on my list is Diamonds and Toads. Now, this is one where I actually don't really like the story so much as I like the imagery of it and the ideas that it provokes, but the story itself, okay, so here's the story, and then I'm going to tell you my take on it, and you can decide, if you agree or disagree. So there's this widow who has two daughters. One of them is the evil stepsister type, except not a stepsister, a full biological sister in this case, and the other one is our protagonist. Sweet, kind, thoughtful, can do no wrong. So the protagonist meets an old beggar woman at the well, and she's very kind to her and offers to get her a drink, and the woman turns out to be a fairy who gives her a blessing that whenever she speaks, diamonds will fall from her lips. Diamonds or other, precious stones, or I think also flower petals. She goes home and the mother is like, oh, I want this gift for my favorite child. So she sends the other daughter as well. Now, this other daughter, when she arrives, there's no old beggar woman. There is what seems to be a princess. And she refuses to get water for her. She's kind of rude. And the princess, of course, turns out to be the same fairy and curses her so that whenever she speaks, toads and snakes and spiders will come falling from her lips. She goes home and the mother is furious, because obviously this is not how she wanted it to work out. Long story short, the mother kicks the good child, the one with the diamonds, out of the house. She runs into a prince who sees that, whenever she speaks, precious stones fall from her lips. So he marries her, and the bad sister also gets kicked out. Nobody will talk to her or have anything to do with her because, nobody likes snakes and spiders. And so she ends up alone in the woods and eventually just curls up and dies. I have a problem with this story. Actually, I have 3 problems with this story. First of all, I think that being a permanent outcast from society and then dying is way too harsh of a punishment for being rude. We're not talking about, the evil queen from Snow White feeding people poisoned apples, or the wicked fairy from Sleeping Beauty putting people into 100-year sleeps here. We're talking a girl who was rude. So that just, wow, disproportionate retribution there. Secondly, the girl with the diamonds. He marries her for the money. He absolutely does. There is no love there. They've just met. She's got diamonds falling out of her mouth when she speaks. He wants her money. So, that doesn't seem like the beginning of a happy relationship to me. And I can't really think that, she ended up better off than the other sister. But I don't know how happy she's going to be in the long run. And then the third thing, the thing that absolutely drives me crazy, being polite or rude on one specific occasion is just a single snapshot that doesn't give an overall picture of someone's character. Now, it's indicated that their actions at the well are consistent with their character, but if that wasn't the case, what if the rude girl was just having a bad day? I really don't like that aspect of fairy tale logic, the idea that one specific secret test of character can determine whether you are a good person or a bad person, rather than whether you made a good choice or a bad choice in one specific moment. I think that overall people's character is shaped by patterns of decision-making over a long period of time, and nobody always does the right thing. So anyway, I find Diamonds and Toads to be a very interesting fairy tale, and it's on the list because I think it's interesting. Mostly I find it interesting because I have issues with it, though. Oh, and by the way, I said that there was one that was really disturbing. That's not the one. We'll get to that one in a bit. Actually, let's just do that one right now. Rumpelstiltskin. Oh my gosh, I find the story of Rumpelstiltskin so disturbing in such a fascinating way. First of all, the girl's father says that she can spin straw into gold. And the king says, okay, if she can do that, I'll marry her. But if not, I'll kill her. And so over the course of these 3 nights, she trades away her necklace and her ring and her firstborn child. Now, let's put this into perspective. None of this was her decision. She wasn't the one who did the bragging. It was her father who did. She didn't ask to marry the king. It was the king who suggested that. And if she can manage to do it, he'll marry her. But would you really want to end up married to someone who, if you'd failed to do something you never claimed you could do, would have had you put to death? I wouldn't. In any case, at the end, she's married to the king, and she's become pregnant and given birth, and Rumpelstiltskin shows up for the child, just as agreed upon, and they come up with this deal. She gets 3 nights to guess his name, and if she fails to do so, the child is his, but if she succeeds, he'll leave it alone. She succeeds. And then if you're reading the Grimm's version, he stomps his foot so hard he literally tears himself in 2 pieces. Anyway, moving on from that lovely image, my question is this. She can't spin straw into gold. So what does she do the next time the king asks her to do that? Think about that for a while. And think about what his original threat was if she couldn't. This fairy tale disturbs me so much. And then the last one on my list, Princess Rosette. This is a French fairy tale. It's about a young girl who, when she's born, it's said that she will cause great misfortune to her brothers. And so she is locked up in a tower, but Eventually, her parents pass away, and her brothers are like, hang on, why is our sister locked in a tower again? So they free her, and she encounters a peacock walking around on the grounds of the palace. She is immediately awed by this peacock's beauty, and she says that she will not marry unless she can marry the king of the peacocks. Well, her brothers want her to get married, so they go off in search of this mysterious king of the peacocks. And they eventually find him, and he agrees to marry her. Only the thing is, after an attempt on her life, Princess Rosette barely survives. She's washed up on shore, separated from the party that she was traveling with. The servant who attempted to kill her then replaces her with her own daughter, who is not very attractive, and having seen Princess Rosette's portrait, the King of the Peacocks is like, I don't want to marry this girl. He's furious with the two brothers for, as he believes, misleading him about their sister's beauty, so he has them thrown in prison as well and sentenced to death. Luckily, Princess Rosette herself shows up in time to clear up those misunderstandings, and they all live happily ever after. I feel kind of sorry for the girl being locked in a tower like that just because somebody said that she'd cause her brother's misfortune. Like, it's not like it's anything that she did intentionally, and it's all as a result of what happened from locking her in the tower. In any case, this fairy tale follows similar patterns to the one that I mentioned in The Goose Girl, with the real princess being swapped out by an imposter and having to then, reveal herself to the man that she was meant to marry in order to prevent the king from marrying the wrong person, or in this case, in order to prevent the king from executing her brothers. He has no intention of marrying the girl who's posing as Rosette. He's just furious that she doesn't look like he thought she would. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was part 3 of a 4-part series, so expect one more installment next week. If you liked it and you want to see more from me, be sure to subscribe. I post new videos every Monday and Thursday.